Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for me to start with the panel discussion. The topic is managing software disruptions, strategies for handling scope changes and unexpected events. And for this, we have our moderator, Aamir Rashid, the founder and CEO of Finch Consulting LLC. All of you please put your hands together for Aamir Rashid. And then we have a couple of panelists with us. I would like to invite Krishna Kumar Bhardwaj, the CEO of Vidyatech Software LLC. Mr. Krishna. Ebenezer Daniel, Chief Digital Officer, LSR Med. Then we have Swakeert Jain, Consulting CTO, Sonko Technologies. And lastly, I would like to invite Dr. David Vannozzi, Chief Executive Officer, Università Telematica Pegaso. All of you please put your hands together for all the panelists over here. And let us begin with this exciting panel discussion.
Is this on? Can you guys hear me? Okay, cool. Hi everyone, my name is Aamir. I'm the founder of Finch Consulting. And welcome you all to this panel, which is sort of a part of our lives for the past 15 years, I'll say, for me, and collectively, I think more than 100 years for all of us. And this is, I think I'll speak for the panel when I say this. This was the easiest pick for us, right? And because it's what we do. Even if you're in software, if you're in design, if you're in consultancy, change management, scope creep, and disasters are bound to happen in software, hardware, technology. It's bound to happen, right? So change is inevitable. So on that front, I'll just give you a brief introduction of who I am, what's my experience, and why am I sitting here. So I've been involved in product development and product design for the past 12 odd years. I've had some startup failures, not successes, honestly, but that has taught me a lot when it comes to this specific topic. And then I ran a very successful product development studio based out of Pakistan and Lahore for the past 7 or 8 years, which also went pretty well. And then I transitioned into more of a consultant role where I now help companies identify their problems in their technology, helping them identify their ideal customer profiles through their products, conduct user research, do technical audits. Product design is a major thing in that. So that's what I do, and I have a wonderful team, people who have worked in the big 4, the top 10 consultancies and big tech companies around the world. So, and I'm honestly, one of the reasons why I really enjoy coming to events like this is because I get to meet wonderful people like the one sitting next to me, so I can rope them in as consultants for my company as well. So, so that's an introduction of myself. And before we move on to the topic, I'd like each of the panelists to introduce themselves as well. We'll start with Mr. Krishna. And yep.
Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. I know this is the afternoon and this is post-lunch. So we'll try and keep you awake, but we may or may not be as successful as we want to be. I got educated, I'm fond of saying this, I learned programming on punched cards in 1976. So I'm an old fogey, you don't need to listen to me. In IIT Delhi, we had an ICL 1909. I then did my management from IIM Bangalore and worked in a bunch of careers in Reserve Bank of India, in research, in NIIT. I developed their e-learning brands, which were a success in the US. And finally, in 2000, founded Vidyatech, which initially focused on learning technology, created a product called Vidyatech. In simple terms, it created Vidya by magic. And now, 6 years ago, we went into cybersecurity and created a product called Dash Magic. The magic is in the dash. In the cyber hive world, there are many products in the security system, but they don't talk to each other. Their OEMs don't talk to each other. So the magic is in connecting them. That's what I do in brief. Thank you.
Daniel, please.
Hi, thanks, Aamir, and hi, everyone. Myself, but let me give it a go. So I have been in technology right from when I know. I've been into various domains. I started off with edutech, then I moved into IT service delivery. So we used to develop softwares for many companies, websites, e-commerce at one point of time. Then I moved into MarTech, which is basically the marketing side, the technology side of marketing. Then I was into media technology again. And then I moved on to e-commerce, core e-commerce, and then back into service delivery, and then into health technologies. Now, presently, I do head the IT wing of medical retail brand, which is one of the largest retailers in Kuwait, medical retailers in Kuwait. And my core strength lies in basically understanding the needs of the customer and plugging in technology as and where it is required. I worked in a number of technologies. My core strength, if I were to put it, is basically e-commerce. I have launched some of the major brands, or I have been a part of the launch of some of the major brands, even in India, that is Microsoft Store. I have been a part of Fashion and You. I've been a part of Deals and You. I've been a part of Tyro, a lot of, even Make My Trip. So I've been a part of many of the brands. So my core strength would be a lot into e-com. I understand customer needs, and I have been plugging in technologies as I go through in life. And currently, I do a lot. I foray a lot into machine learning, AI, and all. Whatever is suitable in the health domain is what I'm currently working on. Alisa Med, the company that I am in, has actually spun off an IT services wing, which I am currently heading. And we are into providing IT services for healthcare companies. So we actually support companies or healthcare brands to implement things, applications such as hospital information systems, patient analytics, end-to-end healthcare using technologies. So we consult for many healthcare brands. So that's it.
Right, thank you, Daniel. So, yeah, I definitely feel like a baby on this panel. I believe I'm the youngest one. And some of the technologies you guys are mentioning are things that I've only heard in theory. But yeah, I have about 8-9 years of experience, which I thought was a lot, but definitely nothing compared to the fellow panel members. I have been known as like a one-man tech department by my colleagues. So I know Python, Django, React, front-end application, web back-end applications. I'm an AWS certified solutions architect. So I know that as well. And last year, I also built my first mobile application. So I try to do a bit of everything. I have worked in London. I have worked in Berlin. In London, I led a tech team at AIG. For the last 2 years or something, I've been running my own technology consulting company based out of India, where I'm helping companies of all sizes, like mostly startups and mid-sized companies, deliver their goals, achieve their targets, and solve their problems, right from software development to coming in as a consulting CTO and helping out on a higher level. So yeah, that's me.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. My name is David Vannozzi. I'm Italian. I'm not an engineer. But I have a particular skill in technique because I have been for 7 years the general manager of the Italian service provider, technology provider of all Italian university. After having completing a very good projects, last year I decided to enter in the field of university, and I gathered, I actually am the CEO of Pegaso Digital University and of Pegaso Digital University in Malta. We are the first university for number of students in Italy and the second in Europe. Our business is the education, and I have already said is a service. And the digital university business is totally involved, totally linked with technology, because every evening around 500,000 students use our website to attend at the lessons, to have examination, to sustain the final examination. And so that's a particular job, because we have developed a special application which can allow the education on distance, but altogether with an interactive way of doing, and with the possibility to see and to interact directly with the students. Our company, our university is part of an English private fund which is named the CVC Capital Partner. We have around 10 universities all around the world, and probably we are the best, the greatest group in the field of university, the digital university. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone, for your introductions. And I must say, this is a very diverse panel for such a targeted topic. And because we have a CEO of a university, we have a software engineer, and we have two very seasoned technology consultants and leaders sitting here. So I'm honestly, this is a good time for me. I'm having a good time right now. And I have some very interesting questions to ask from you guys. But before that, I'll just take a minute to sort of explain this topic for anyone who's not familiar, which is going to be very rare, but still, I'll give it a shot. So in any form of technology or software, there has to be change, right? I mean, we all understand that. Change is inevitable. Unexpected events always happen. But how do they happen? That's basically what we're going to talk about, and how do we curtail them. But so they can happen internally, externally, government forces, market forces. There are a lot of forces that act on a product that essentially cause it to change. Sometimes people are changing it, sometimes people are not changing it. But most of the times, whatever is happening due to a reason. It's never happening just because, you know, it wants to change. So it's always enacted by something or someone, either internally or externally. So that's the idea. And with that, I'll go to my first question that I'm going to ask Daniel. So given your experience, and I'm sure you've gone through multiple methodologies of project management and communication, but that's all changing very rapidly as well, right? So we have new softwares, we have new methodologies, we have AI, we have data, and we have ML, and so many other terms that I can't even remember right now. How do you think all of these softwares and methodologies influence change management or influence scope creep, for example? What's your take on that?
Yeah, Aamir, I'd just like to go back a little and explain a little bit of what you said, and then take on from there. So basically, one is to understand what a change is. So a change happens due to multiple reasons. One could be information-driven change. So let's say we started off a project. At that time, we had another set of information, and at the middle of when the project is being implemented, we came across some set of information that is influencing the outcomes. We do expect a change. Another could be budget related, like we started off the project, we started off an activity with a budget in mind or something, and then after 6 months, we just realize, oh, we run out of budget, or maybe we have some additional budget to maybe put in something more. So those are budget-related changes. The third is more of a quality-related change. So we might have started off with something in mind, and then we say, oh, perhaps if we add this to it, this is how, this could make the product much better. So it's a quality-related change. And the fourth is schedule-related change. Schedule-related change, and I'm sure many of you who have been into software service delivery would have come across this. Usually the project starts off saying, oh, we are okay with the 6-month schedule. And then after 3 months, it's like, oh, there's an event coming, let's release the application now. So then we're all thinking, okay, now how do we release it? Okay, we cut here and we cut there and we cut there and somehow make the product viable and release it off. So these are like schedule-related changes. And these changes do come in. And we are all, as service delivery people, we are supposed to expect it. Now, there's a small thing here that I like to bring in, which is a change versus a creep. A scope creep is a little different from a change. We must all welcome change, and change is de facto. We have to welcome it. And instead of refusing the change, we must look at how efficiently we manage the change. I'll shed some light as we go ahead on this same subject. But before that, I'd like to just bring in another aspect called as a scope creep, which is different from a change. A scope creep is something that is creeping in the project life cycle it comes in as though, oh, we just told you this, but we just didn't explain it to you. Or maybe there was a misunderstanding, or we just say, oh, okay, we didn't realize this. So these are creeps, these are not changes. And these creeps are things that are to be avoided, which is basically points to an inefficient business analysis, an inefficient project manager. These are what it points to. And creep is to be avoided, while scope changes are to be managed. Now, when we come to managing scope changes, as Aamir said, there has been a lot of improvements. I remember in good old days, we used to use a technique called as a waterfall project management methodologies. Now it's more of agile, and agile is one of the tools that is used to manage change efficiently. Now, why do I say agile? It's a project management methodology. It's not a tool. While there are many tools that help us to implement agile, agile looks at projects at very small chunks, and what it helps doing so is it helps identifying change much before it really hits us. And the second thing that agile does is it puts the customer needs first and then the scope afterwards. And what happens is when we put the customer needs first, the customers usually don't come up with the change, we ourselves come up with the change. We say, okay, it's better to do it this way, and then the customer understands it.
But do you think these things are helping you, if we were to sum it up?
It does. Because the only tool I see that can be used to effectively manage change is active listening. I implemented hundreds of projects. What happens is when we look at a project as a money-making machine or something that is going to be given to a customer and we take the money in return of it, we are bound to fail. Projects are bound to fail. We are actually supposed to look at projects as tools to help a digital transformation or an enhancement to the customer's business. And when we look at it like that, we tend to listen more, we tend to learn more, and we tend to actually implement what the customers need or the clients need, and in turn, we actually end up with lesser and lesser changes.
So I think where you're getting at is that it's also very subjective. right? And which also brings me to the point that Krishna, I would actually want you to shed some light on, and this is something we were just talking about before starting the panel, is stakeholder management and how it is, as I said, it's subjective and it's relative, right? As Daniel said, that scope creep and change is different. Someone in a different role in a different organization might not agree with that. So how do you think stakeholder management influences scope change and scope creep?
All right, very good question. Are there any developers here, actually, who are responsible for development teams, software development? Okay, then there's somebody there?
Yeah. Like
Okay.
5 people.
Okay, all right. I think, when software disruption happens, it could happen for many reasons. It could be location level, there is a disaster or a pandemic. It could be at the project level. You don't have enough, for example, people to take care of the scope change that is being demanded. Or it could be at organizational level. There's a merger and an acquisition and the leadership has changed. Or it could be technological advancement. The industry is moving, and so your software development must move along with that. Actually, one of the methodologies defines scope creep as uncontrolled scope change, which is exactly what Daniel was saying. In my view, a lot of issues come up because of role conflict between stakeholders and development teams. It's the development team that is making outline of the project, timeline, requirements, getting sign off on requirements, and then the stakeholders come and say, oh, the competition is ahead of us, we need to add the following feature. Now, what Daniel was mentioning becomes very important in that case. The appreciation of both parties in terms of their role conflict. The conflict is not personal, it's not organizational, it's generated from the role that the stakeholders are playing, which is saying that if our software doesn't have a competitive edge, what's the point of making it? So that is what generates the conflict. The other thing, in my view, is that because competitive edge is very important, there is always a trade-off. Should we release the product early as it is? Or should we define very clearly what the minimum viable product is? If you need to redefine it in the middle, great. But define what an MVP is and then release it based on the trade-off between early release, all the features being there, the customer expectations being met, so on and so forth. So there are many techniques, for example, that might allow this to happen very easily. For instance, requirement specification, the more comprehensive it is, the fewer ambiguous requirements that are there. If it's very clear, that helps. What also helps, as Daniel was saying, is education. Both of the stakeholders saying, hey, you want this change, you know what the impact is going to be on schedule, on resources, on timelines, on everything. So they have to be educated. On the other hand, stakeholders need to educate the development team on what the source of that scope change is. It's coming from marketing, it's coming from competitor edge, is it user feedback, so on and so forth. So that's my take on the role conflict.
That's a great answer, and which sort of resonates with the fact that there's always some form of prioritization that is going on in the company, right? With all the stakeholders. There's a certain priority that the founder might have, the CEO might have, then there's a certain priority that the sales team might have. So who takes precedence? And that's my question to Swakeert. Like, how do you think prioritization from the top hierarchy is influencing all of this?
Yeah, I think that's a very important question that sometimes we kind of forget, especially as developers. We would always go and say like, okay, this is the easiest to develop, so let's start with this, let's go and grab some low-hanging fruits. Or we would say, okay, this is the most challenging, I want to work on this problem, not the other problems. But it's always important to, like Krishna said, there's a source of these scope creep or scope changes. And it's very, very important, I feel, to understand the source and whether is it coming from a user, for example. So if you have your business intelligence set up and you're looking at users, they're not clicking a button, for example, which is your main CTA. Then you go identify that and you see, okay, this is a solution that might help it. We are going to do alpha beta testing on it. And based on that, we are going to influence this decision. So this is a very data-driven decision, which you can, I would say, definitely prioritize because there is data backing up your conclusions and your development, and it's definitely going to show, like at least in my experience, it's definitely going to show effects on your user engagement. While on the other hand, you might say, okay, we were having a development workshop or an ideation session, which is a very common term like corporates use, like we were having an ideation session, and we feel this particular feature might be like the edge, it might give us the edge, and let's go drop everything else and develop this. This is the kind of feature I would say, wait, no, do we really need to develop it? Can we do an MVP, as Krishna said, or even before an MVP, can we do some user testing with basic mockups, and wire flows, and then we can see, okay, let's commit all the development effort to it. So I think these are the kind of considerations I would ask my team to take before committing to something, and this helps prioritize stuff.
Great. So your answer is prioritization should be backed by data.
Definitely.
But, and here's the but for David to answer now. I've seen leadership roles, and I've been in those roles for some time as well, albeit much smaller than in which you are right now. But sometimes the visionaries and the leaders who are disruptors, they're not backed by their data. They're backed by some feelings. They're backed by some gut instinct, right? I know Krishna is having, a laugh in his head. Oh my God, this guy again. but my question to you is it how always, is that how always top leadership makes decisions? Is it always through gut feelings? Is it through some financial decision, or is it really through data? Or is it backed by data?
Yeah, probably I make a mistake telling you that I'm not an engineer, but...
No, this is a totally non-technical question.
But to explain, I worked for many years as a consultant, and I have a particular skill in business process and engineering and business analysis. So I'm not only a financial that have a look only on the data and financials, because I need what we have to do with the process. I have to tell you my experience. My previous company, the IT service provider, use very spreaded the project management, the agile system for developing, because we entrust in this kind of tools, but with unexpected events, something like with the COVID pandemic, for example, all the scenario changes. At the beginning, we do everything with stress assessed, with testing, with a certain number of steps to deliver, and our scenario changed in 3 days, and we have to re-engineer all the software department, because we have to forget the rules, to forget not only the rules, but our internal aim, our internal feeling. For example, to put online all the students, we decide not to follow the rules about the security, because just in case we have to put around 1,800,000 students altogether, with the normal systems, we are not able. Our systems support only, with the previous rule, only 100,000, not 1,800,000. 800,000. And so we have to make we have to take some decisions that at the end brought our company, our students, our country to another step, another point, totally different point, in which we discover something new and we obtain ideas for the future. For example, but probably I can explain in the next question. For example, we observe a total change of feeling in the students. First, the online courses are only a result. Only 10% of students studies online. After, 80% of students. The students entrust the system, entrust us, entrust professor not in presence, and they gather the new system with a very, very, very large amount of people.
Great. Sounds inspirational, honestly, to do that at that scale. Kudos. So, what I gather, and I hope all of you are following, and because this is really interesting to me, because these are all the things that you often face when you're running a company, running a team, running a project for someone, or even your own product. These are all the things that you feel on a daily basis. But there's one thing that I just wanted to bounce off of you guys, and if you could just take like a minute to answer, because this is a really small thing, but I just want to take your perspective. Discovery and scoping of the project is something very important. We all agree on that, right? And as most of you have sort of hinted on this topic, that as both of you were saying, Krishna and Daniel, that the creep comes in, or the change of the scope comes in when there is some form of either a miscommunication or there is an external factor that is influencing it. How much do you think we can, what is the extent of discovery we can do to remove this, the probability of scope change or scope creep from our projects? And this is a question for you as well, by the way, because whenever you're building something new, you always discover, you always scope it out, right? So how much, what is the extent of that discovery? Can a human possibly do 100% discovery of a project, or can AI help us do that? Anyone can start off.
If I may,
Please.
So I personally believe it's almost never possible to do all the discovery work. The only true test of your application is when you throw it in front of the users, whatever you might be building. One of the famous examples is Facebook. They started off with matching you with the potential partners. You were rating Facebook, you were rating people's looks based on the college, and now it's one of the biggest social networks in the world. I'm pretty sure they were not doing that kind of discovery work. So you pivot, you adapt, and the modern softwares are built on like smaller life cycles, like we were discussing waterfall, which takes like 6 months or something. But Agile and Scrum is like, okay, 2 weeks, we put something new in front of the users, we test them, and the real testing ground is always the users. So it's never possible, in my opinion. Build MVP, throw it in front of the users, and iterate.
Okay. Krishna?
So I think this is a trick question. So
You got me.
the reason I'm saying that is that it's not a good idea to try and remove scope change from your development project. And the reason I say that is, for example, if the reason is that you need to retain a competitive edge, well, that's a valid reason. You might as well not have built the product if you're going to lose the competitive edge. Or let me take another reason. Let's say the constraints have changed, which means there is a new regulatory framework that's come in and you have to comply with it. Now, there's no point discovering it at the end of the project. You might as well discover it now and release a project that is compliant. Or let's say there's an internal churn, your company's been bought by somebody else. It's good if the leadership goes and reviews all the products and sees whether they're now in line with their new strategies. Or let's say if there was an expectation mismatch, Yes, AI can help you do more comprehensive, requirement analysis. It can look at chats, transcripts of phone calls, emails, et cetera, to get the implicit and explicit requirements. But the point is, AI can only help you do that. It's a tool to help you do that. You still have to do the communication as per a plan periodically. So that is my take on both, should we remove it? Yeah, we should minimize it. And what we should minimize is the impact of the scope change. You can do planning, you can do processes, you can do best practices to minimize or be very aware of the impact of the scope change. But it's a wrong idea to eliminate scope change.
Great. Daniel?
Yeah, I think, as Krishna said, it's actually a trick question because, discovery never ends, and we keep discovering, keep discovering something new coming in. And I also believe that change should not be stopped, but creep should be stopped, in the sense that somebody walks into the room and impulsively says, oh, let's do this, which was never even thought about. It's those things that need to be somehow stopped and curbed. But a change for good, change for the reason of maybe schedule, budgets, new data, new information that has come in, all of this should be encouraged. The reason being is it's futile to launch a product that doesn't meet the needs of the customer. In fact, we shouldn't even be working on it. So I think we should be encouraging change, and we should be managing it better.
Great. David, your take?
In my opinion, changes is not predictable and is impossible to avoid. We have implemented a system which can be very, very close with the market and understand the changeable the market. Because 10 years ago, for example, the market changed but slowly. Now, everything can change in 1 month, for example. And every system you can implement is a failure. But I have a good news. At the beginning, my company, in the previous example, my company, for example, has around 100 products for the university. At the end, the solution has been chosen with one of these products, the product for the online university, which in our revenue, in our balance sheet, has a value of 0.1% of the total. But if we haven't invested in that kind of product, probably we couldn't be able to answer to the ministry, to the people, to students, so that probably company has an internal feeling which can prevent from the disaster, adapting themselves to the changeable world in which they are put.
Great. So I think there's a unanimous voice of the panel on this trick question, at least, which you've rightly pointed out, it was a trick question. And I asked this because of one reason, honestly. It's because I've heard it too much from people coming in, projects who don't have that kind of experience. And the one thing I've often heard people say, technical or non-technical, they're blaming one another. You should have told me earlier. You should have known this before you started the project. Right? And it's stemming from a lot of backgrounds. It's not just a technical thing. It's also, maybe it's stemming from the sales function. Maybe it's stemming from the marketing function. Maybe it's stemming from the product function.
Or
right?
sometimes the worry of performance appraisal.
Of course, yeah. People have to save their jobs, right? So, but to this, and I'll just take a minute to sort of build a premise, and then I'll go to the question, right? So, it's actually strange when I talk to a lot of my clients, especially the larger ones. the big enterprise, I don't know what's going on, but none of them or most of them have very less idea about who the ICP of their software is. The ideal customer profile or the ideal user persona of their product, their software, hardware, whatever it is, they're actually pretty confused about it. And they have this very large elephant in the room vision, which is, oh yeah, they will use it, that person will use it, that person will use it, the guy standing outside in the boat will use it, everyone is going to use it, right? So that's one thing. The other thing is that as you all unanimously agreed with my question that you can't stop it, but you can definitely have a system for it, right? You can definitely have a system in place that how do we deal with change? And that sort of is built into the design system of your whole product, the architecture of your product, right? If you build it as a monolith with no room for change, obviously you are going to be not happy about it when change comes. So now to the question. I hope you don't call this a trick question. I believe everything that we have spoken about is about managing expectations. And in fact, that word is used in our topic as well, unexpected events, right? And something that is unexpected is because you never expected it, and because that certain expectation that some unexpected event can happen was not managed, right? So just in this last 8 minutes, 2 minutes each, right? And I'll time keep you this time. Please tell me your thoughts on expectation management with an example. Krishna.
I think this is also a trick question. I'll tell you why.
No, I'm a two-trick
You
one.
see, you can say technically, oh, you should have expected COVID, you should have expected all the changes in technology, and you should have expected that your team is going to leave because the industry would suddenly start offering them unreasonable wages. But the definition of an unexpected event is that you weren't able to expect it. And so that's why it's connected with the previous question that there are going to be unexpected changes. What you can do in your preparation is maybe identify them and do contingency planning. Are we prepared, for example, if there's a pandemic for people to actually work from home? Are we prepared if there is a technology change, the architecture is built in a way that we can adapt to the new technology? Have we built the software in a flexible, configurable way so that if there are changes required, we can combine some microservices or whatever it is so that, these things can be met? But you can only prepare. Man prepares and God disposes sometimes. So you cannot eliminate expectation mismatch. You can only try to minimize it. And if you've done all that, you've done a great job.
Great.
Yeah. I come across a number of situations, and I'm sure many of you would have. One side of the table says, you didn't ask me. And the other side says, you should have told me. I'm sure many of you have been in such a situation. And this is a very difficult situation to be in as project managers, as analysts, as consultants. I personally hate to be in that situation. We need to ask is the end of the story. When we sit and talk to somebody, we need to ask and ask till we are satisfied, till he is also satisfied. If we don't ask as consultants, it's our fault. And I deeply feel very insulted when I am in such a situation and somebody says you didn't ask. I feel that I have wronged the customer. The reason is that when we go and we propose something, we actually propose to solve somebody's problem. And if we haven't asked enough, that means we haven't understood the problem enough, and therefore our solutions are not acceptable. And to answer your thought, that yes, there's no end to discovery, and the only way that we could, only on releasing an acceptable solution is software development or any product delivery complete.
Right. So just to just realign, expectation management, as we are all talking about, right? So I want you to sort of give me, Swakeert, an example from your, because I know you work with a lot of these companies and you're struggling, probably struggling with a lot of these CEOs and these guys who's, you have to manage expectations. Why don't you start with an example if you can?
So first of all, this is streaming live, so I'm not struggling with any of my CEOs.
No,
Everything is great.
Don't name them. Just give them.
I'm just kidding. But no, so expectation management, I think first of all, everybody needs to harbor a good relationship, working relationship, whether it's client, whether it's stakeholder, whether it's developers, your underlings, your managers or whatever, because in the end, everybody just wants to do a good job and go home to their families probably and have a good life. So nobody is after your life and after like whatever you're doing. So I think that's the baseline to understand. Like whenever there's a new scope coming in, they probably genuinely believe that it's better for the product. It's not somebody's whims and fancies that they're coming up with stuff, or nobody's trying to make your life difficult. So I think, first of all, that first principle, understanding that, okay, we are all just human beings trying to do something better. And in the same vein, I would like to remind people of, I don't know how many of us are familiar with what Scrum is and where the word comes from. So it's actually a rugby term. And when the rugby game starts, the huddle they form against teams is the Scrum. And that's where the term comes from. So developers are pushing against UI, UX designers, product managers are pushing against developers, management is pushing against all of them, and they all form this kind of a huddle where everybody is pushing each other with the end goal of making something that's better than everything else. So I think, yeah, all of these taken into account and understanding people and their mindset and why this is coming from, and then you can always be ready for change. Never say like, okay, we have thought of everything, even architecture, monolith, or whatever you go for, you would never have prepared for everything. So
you can
just
only have systems in place.
Yeah, you can have systems in place to adapt to that change, but not systems that automatically adapt or do something. So you talk about scalability in software, but doesn't mean like it's going to scale for every scenario.
Yeah, exactly. It's
So
not
yeah, just be
infinitely
prepared.
scalable.
Sorry?
It's not infinitely scalable.
Exactly.
Nothing is.
Exactly, nothing is. And then you go for a microservice architecture. Some might be scalable, other microservices might not be. So you never know what's going to happen. So have a short development life cycle, be prepared for change, and ready to adapt.
Spot on. Love your answer. David.
Managing expectation is connected, is linked with the communication. And we have, for example, 120 universities which use the same products. And we organize panel for each kind of product to obtain expectation of the university. But I have not good news about, because sometimes the panelist, probably like me, doesn't know what they want. Yep. And sometimes if you haven't an idea of what is better and what is worst, you make a great disaster, because people are used to think on the problem of tomorrow, but forget the problem of from 1 year to year to year. And so it's a very, very delicate balance. On a part, you have to cooperate with your panelists. On the other way, you have to have the idea of what is the system, what is the best solution, what is the architecture, what is the situation which cannot be eliminated. Because if you don't do in this way, you cannot do a good software for your clients.
Wonderful. So with that, I think we've reached the end of our time almost. And I think again, one thing that we're all trying to say here is that don't fight the change, welcome change, that's one thing. Communication is key, that's the other thing. And third thing is that expectations have to be managed one way or another. And they have to be, I mean, you know how they say expect the unexpected. I'm not sure if that applies here, but sort of. But yeah, I think I'll let the audience draw their own premise for the conclusion of this panel, and we'll open the floor for questions.
Yeah, just want to make one comment.
Sure, yeah.
I would like to just change the spelling of expect and say accept the unexpected.
Oh, that's lovely. Yeah,
Definitely.
amazing. Sure. I accept that. Great. So, any question from the audience? Wow, we did bore you guys a lot, didn't we?
Very clear.
Oh, we do
Absolutely, please.
We have one.
Can we get them a mic? Yeah. If you can just say your name and your company name, that'd be great.
My name is Sid. I am co-founder and CEO of Kila.io. We are a product company. We've built a managed service for blockchain as a service. So interestingly, I'm glad that I attended this chat because you all were talking about agile, and we've recently adopted that methodology into our product development. My question is around conflict between different teams, pertaining to the huddle that you talked about, and when the push actually becomes a shove, and what is your advice for someone like me who leads these teams to resolve the conflict? Because the conflict I feel it was more about egos clashing, because a junior was telling a senior that he needs to attend a stand-up and follow his instructions, and the senior is like, no, you follow my instructions because you're not doing this. So that kind of created a very testy episode in office in front of everyone, and so I'm trying to basically figure out both sides of the story. So I wanted to understand from your side, how would one deal with a conflict like that, and what ideas you all can give to navigate something like this.
You want a specific person to answer it or anybody?
I could hear from all of you, it's fine.
Okay.
Go on.
You want to go ahead?
No, it's okay.
No? Okay. So I think what you are saying is that role conflict got personal.
Right.
And unfortunately, we don't realize that the role conflict is by design. That's exactly the purpose for their roles. One is conflicting with another. It's like production and marketing. Marketing says, I'm going to sell like 1 million beer bottles next month. If you guys don't show me that you have 1 million beer bottles, then what the heck? Production says, I can only produce at a steady level, otherwise I'll have to subcontract. But so this is inherent, and that understanding and that expectation management at both ends is what will make it impersonal. But the other issue is that, remember, these conflicts are not, like one of us stated, are not really to the letter based on what is being done or said. There is a baggage behind. There is an emotional baggage behind. There is a feeling that I'm being taken for a ride, I'm being randomized. And the other guy feels, oh man, I want a comma change, then these guys want another month. What the heck? So that subtext has to be understood by someone who's a stakeholder and then dealt with. That's my take, if it helps.
And I think I want to add, so you mentioned they were the same team and one was a junior and another was a senior, and specifically one thing I picked on was the junior was saying why the senior is not attending the stand-up. So I think from a management point of view, I would first of all lay the same ground rules. Like in a stand-up, everyone is equal and everybody needs to attend. So if you go by the Agile handbook, it's just for a 10-minute stand-up for everyone to say, okay, this is what I'm working on, this is where I'm stuck, or this is where I need somebody's help. So if these ground rules are laid and everybody knows, like, okay, within a team we are equal, my years of experience don't matter, and especially if somebody's saying something that's technical, they should be given merit for what they have said. So as a manager point of view, I would first of all let the conflict resolve itself. So a lot of times managerial intervention, in my opinion, is not needed. You can just let them, just send them out for lunch or something together. Like, guys, like you do at kindergarten, right? Go give a timeout to them. You both need to sit together, and until you resolve it, you're not coming back. So that might help. But from a managerial point of view, only thing I would do is make the same ground rules for everyone, irrespective of seniority.
But who decides the, so let's say that the conflict had some merit to it because there was a difference of opinion. One was complaining about the backlog. One is saying, I don't want to talk about the backlog because this is what I have organized the stand-up for. So when I'm sitting on the outside, who would I have to side? Because it's essentially they've walked away from each other and now no work is happening. Right. Not the backlog and not the stand-up also.
Yeah, so I think in that sense, the organization priorities are important. So if you are facing an issue where your daily Scrum board is looking more like a backlog or your sprint is looking more like a backlog where you have 15 different tasks waiting to be picked up, then I guess you can side with one person and say, no, let's get on with work and rather not do backlog grooming because we are not reaching the targets we have already set out. But if it's the other way around where you don't know what you're going to be doing next week because the backlog is not groomed and the stories are not ready for development, then you might side with the other person. But I think, first of all, just bringing them on board and saying like, okay, like you can be there or you cannot be there, but at least those two people need to have a conversation and figure it out. I've been in a lot of situations where I've had like literal shouting contests with my colleagues, but afterwards we would always go for a beer or something and figure it out between ourselves and come back the next day as normal.
Also, this connects to what we were just talking about, expectations management, right? So even your team has expectations from each other and from you and from the client and everyone, right? So someone's expectation is misaligned over here, some 2 persons or 3 persons, right? And also it's a culture thing. So what might work for Swakeert's team or Daniel's team might not work for your team. So it's a very personal, it's a corporate personal choice for you of how you're going to manage it, but also at the core of it, if you keep going 2 steps back to uncover what really happened, I assure you someone had the wrong expectation from the other.
I'd like to say one more thing here. We've used huddles, and huddles are, like Swakeert said, very democratic. But to my mind, organizations are not really democratic. There are voices that count more than others. And therefore, when a huddle, actually pops up a conflict of this nature, it needs to be held in a meeting. It needs to be dealt with in a meeting and not in the huddle. The huddle format doesn't lend itself to resolution. It's the best for getting everybody together. If there's something happening which prevents that, it needs to be dealt with. That's all. Thank you.
David, you want to add?
In this conflict, I think that another technique is the role playing, because one part has to think about what happens on the other part. For example, it's a little example, but until 1 year ago, I was a producer of software, and listened university which asked me everything. Then I passed on the other side, and I understand how some changes which they ask me are important, are crucial, but I haven't understood before. And so it's very important, the role playing. You have to think about why people are asking me something.
Empathy, basically. Awesome. Do we have just 30 more seconds to just take the last comment?
We have finished.
Okay.
Yeah, please. You were going to say something. Oh.
I'd just like to add a thing here in conflict management. Conflict happens within the organization as well as outside the organization. Like it might happen between a company and its client too, and it might happen within the tech team also. Now, I have seen both sides of the table, and I would never engage a company whose owner is not able to manage his team well. So as a leader of a software solutions provider, The job of a leader is to ensure that all the policies and procedures in development are followed by each team member. So internally, there are certain processes and policies that have to be obeyed by all, while as externally, the only way to solve stakeholder-related conflicts are using a thing called a servant leadership, where you actually are actually a servant leader to lead the clients to a particular goal. But internally, you make sure that all policies and procedures are fulfilled, and it is disciplinary.
I think we can handle other questions. We are offline whenever you guys can ask us. No problem. So we'll end this.
Yeah, we were out of time 5 minutes ago. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, guys, for being on the panel. It was really insightful. And thank you to you all for listening to us and bearing with us. And we're here if you want to ask some other questions off stage. Thank you.
Thank you so much, audience.
Thank you.
Thank you very much,
everyone.
all the panelists, and thank you, our moderator, Aamir Rashid. It was really great to see you guys over here, sharing insightful information. Thank you.